the early 60s was a grand era for motorcycle racing in America. Names like Joe Leonard, Carroll Reesweber, Dick Mann, Bart Markle, John Penton, Bill Baird, and a host of others were filling the record books with their accomplishments. The 61 season had just been completed, and the colossal Carroll Reesweber just clinched his fourth straight AMA Grand National title with 62 points over three-time Grand National champion Joe Leonard with 39. Dick Mann was third over Bart Markle, Neil Keane, Dick Clamford, and Roger Riemann. BMW rider John Penton and Triumph rider Bill Baird had battled back and forth all year, with Baird taking the Grand National Enduro title. I had just gotten involved with the sport and spent a lot of time at this fine establishment called Dewey's Motorcycle Shop, which 6 years later became a business laugh called Dick's Cycle Clinic. My unique racing ability provided me the opportunity to really see what was going on from the back of the pack. It is still debated today whether I was a slow racer or a fast spectator. The tracks at this time weren't much different than some of those you see today. Some of them were slick and greasy, like this Scrambles track at Bonner Springs, Kansas. And some were dusty, like this half mile at John Zink Ranch in Oklahoma. And the racing squirrel was just as prominent then as they are today, but most generally they were lumped together in their own class, so they couldn't hurt anyone but themselves. Maybe. I hauled around to the races with Mel Haynes, Dewey and Buster McQuarrie, Jimmy Odell, Cecil Wagers, Scotty Bridges, Billy Leibacher, Dave Fitzpatrick, just to name a few. The brands that were winning in this part of the country at that time was Harley, Triumph, BSA, Indian, Matchless, Jawa, Mako, Ducati, Norton, and Pirella. This was before the time of the KMSA, colored leathers, motocross, face shields, road race fairings, and brakes on flat trackers. Admission to a local scrambles was $1 or less, and the riders didn't pay any entry fee. The film you are watching is actually an accident. Haynes, McQuarrie, and I used to take home movie cameras with us to the races, and as views seen so far, and will continue to see as this motion picture progresses, none of us had a lot of ability with a camera. But I decided to put this film together to preserve and document this era of racing. It won't win any awards for quality, but maybe 100 years from now, those who see this film will say what you're probably saying right now. Look at all those weird-looking motorcycles, and boy, they sure dressed funny in those days.
I follow the circuit wherever it takes me, playing that old racing game. This season will end when another season begins, and following the circuit never ends. Yeah, following the circuit never ends. I spend more money than I ever win, playing that old racing game. But I like what I do, family and friends do too. And other games are too tame. Yeah, other games are just too tame. I follow the circuit wherever it takes me, playing that old racing game. This season will end when another season begins, and following the circuit never ends. Yeah, following the circuit never ends. I'm always pumped up in my endless search for winning is the name of the game. My ultimate high is getting it on the fly and earn my racing fame. Yeah, earn that racing fame. I follow the circuit wherever it takes me, playing that old racing game. This season will end when another season begins, and following the circuit never ends. Yeah, following the circuit never ends. That old racing circuit never ends.
On May 27th, Buster McQuarrie, Mel Haynes, and I headed for Jefferson City for a scrambles. I had a 500 Indian and 200 Triumph, while Buster had a 500 BSA. My racing career got off to a crashing good start. I rode the heat, final, and consolation and crashed on all three. At the end of the day, both me and my bike were plenty dinged up. But Freddie Warden and his 250 ESO outdid me. He and Dick Ebert were riding for Charlie Stall's Jawa. Fred lined up for his heat and promptly pulled this little number. The Capital City Motorcycle Club sponsored the race at their track 6 miles north of the Missouri River. The fellow who just walked in front of the camera is Carl Myers, who had just started a newspaper called Missouri Motorcycling, which later became Midwest Motorcycling.
There's Carl. The week before at Avos, Missouri, the Lucky Wheels had John Agee, Ricky Yeager, Linnell Shiflett, and Eddie Whalen winning. The following week at Canton, all the winners were from Brookfield. Irv Bourne won the Trophy Dash in the Big Motor Final, and the other class winners were Jim Barnes and Linnell Shiflett. But at the Jeff City race, John Whitty won the Trophy Dash, and Alvin Brockledge won the 200 final over Ricky Yeager, Buck Gallup, and Leonard Nixon. John Agee won the 250 final ahead of Jerry Fraser, Crazy Floyd Johnson, and D.I. Brown, and Irv Bourne won the Open over D.I. and Buster. At the end of the races, Tux Helm would get everybody together for a trophy shot. The Heart of the Ozarks Club in Springfield, Missouri held this benefit for the Sunshine Acres Rest Home on July 15th. Riders came from a long ways away, like Thurin Kinsey of Hutchinson, Kansas, and Johnny Neighbors of Little Rock, Arkansas. Here's Donnell Shiflett setting fast time on his 250 Harley. This rider was now winning a lot. We called him Crazy Charlie Dawson. But in the Trophy Dash, John Whitty and his big Sportster outdrug Donnell Shiflett to the first turn and won. Later in the day, Whitty crashed hard and broke his leg. Ricky Yeager and his 175 Harley won the class over Dick Ebert and Joe Yeager. Donnell outran Crazy Floyd Johnson and Jerry Fraser in the 250, while Thurin Kinsey won the Open over Charlie Dawson, Dick Sanders, and Leon Clark. There were 3 clubs in Springfield: Heart of the Ozarks, Black Hawks, and the Checkers. They teamed on to put on short tracks the next 2 weeks. Vern Myers ran a wall of fire, and Gus Kennard did wheelies on July 28th. Bill Snyder of Bethel led the final until the last lap when Crazy Floyd got by to win. Wayne Arnold was third. The next week, John Agee won the final over Crazy Floyd, Snyder, and Frank Williams. The AMA professional flat track season was in full swing. This packed house turned out for a low-paying 3-star at Hutchinson, Kansas. National 45 Darrell Dovell on a 500 Triumph set fast time won the dash, his heat in the final. Donnell Shiflett did the same thing in the amateur class, or what is now called junior, and won everything in sight. The national scene was shifting as Don Burnett had won Daytona over Dick Mann and Ralph White. George Montgomery won the junior, a race in which Yvonne DeHammel rode, and Howard Utsey won the novice over Billy Jasper. Al Gunner had won 12 main events at Ascot and Gardenia, California, and then came back to Dodge City to win 2 half miles on Labor Day weekend. Markle won Springfield and Reese Weber had run Santa Fe. Dick Hammer and Markle won the Peoria Nationals while Reese Weber took 2 seconds. But the battle for number 1 ended at the dusty Lincoln, Illinois half-mile national when Reese Weber's racing career came to an end when he was seriously injured in a motorbike crash that took the life of Texan Jack Golson. The final nationals had Tony McGee winning the Indy Road Race, Markle taking the Sacramento Mile, and Dick Dorstein winning the 50-lap Ascot TT. This is Lakeside Stadium in Kansas City, Kansas. At an earlier event, number 63 Gary Nixon outran Art Barta to win. At this event, Darrell Dovell won everything. This was a popular track on the circuit, and there were a lot of races held here. But it wasn't very popular for number 56K, Dewey McQuarrie, on this particular day. In the Trophy Dash, Dewey found out the true meaning of the word high side.
The Iron Horseman Club held scrambles, enduros, road events, and hill climbs in Sedalia, Missouri. One of the first riders out on the track at this September 16 race was Hank Harry. As you can see in the background, large turnouts of fans were common, and almost all of them rode their street bikes to the events. This wasn't my best day, as I high-sided and dislocated a shoulder. The crazy ambulance driver scared me to death with his wide-open ride to the hospital. 2 weeks later, the Iron Horseman Club sent me a check for $30. They did this with all the riders that got injured. In those days, $30 just about paid the whole doctor bill. At this event, they drew 47 riders, which was considered a large turnout, and there wasn't a single Japanese brand entered. In this race, the rider with the wild throttle hand is little Joe Yeager. His legs were finally long enough to touch the ground. Irv Bourne won the Trophy Dash, and Ricky Yeager won the 175 over Little Joe and Jack Whalen. Buck Gallup won the 200 over Mel Haynes and Norman Lubert. Donnell Shiflett won the 250 ahead of Leonard Nixon and Irv Bourne. Dale Atkinson beat Buster and D.I. in the 500s, and Jim Barnes won the Open over Buck Gallup and Junior Mills. In the mid-70s, when you mention the town agency, the Fine Motocross Club comes to mind, but in 1962, the Pony Express Club held hill climbs and scrambles at agency. At this July 30th race, Donnell Shiflett time-trialed fastest with a 26.2 second lap. He came back to win the Trophy Dash and also won the 250 final over Norman Lutz, Wayne Arnold, and John Reek. Mako rider Leonard Dixon won the 175 over Bill McKinley, Jim Barnes, and Bill Tate. Charlie Dawson won the Open over Gerald Everhart, Buster McQuarrie, and Larry Thomas. There were some highs and some lows in 1962. Some highs was Bill Johnson setting a new land speed record at 230 miles per hour in a Triumph Streamliner at Bonneville, Rolf Tiblin winning the World 500 motocross title on a four-stroke Husky, and Joe Hemus winning the National Hill Climb title on a Triumph at Muskegon, Michigan. John Wright on a 200 Triumph Cub won the 500-mile two-day Jack Pine Enduro. But a low was Missouri expert W.J. Persinger being broadsided by a car at this event and receiving serious injuries. Meanwhile, at Jefferson City on July 29th, the winners at the scrambles were Lance Coons, Ricky Yeager, Alvin Brockledge, Terry McLennan, and James McQueen. The Happy-Go-Lucky Club at Holt, Missouri held the 7-state hill climb championship on August 12th. This is D.I. Brown on his BSA taking third in the 500 class. Dale Aldridge won over Don Baldwin. Don Baber won the 200 class over Bill Bales and Mel Haynes. Charlie Dawson won the 650 class in front of Bill Cook and Ron Kennedy. This rider is Donnell Shiflett winning the 250 class with Freddie Worden second and Dick Ebert third. There was a 50-year age span between 175 trophy winners. 14-year-old Ricky Yeager won over 12-year-old Joe Yeager and 62-year-old Tux Helms. This next rider is Wayne Arnold. The second fastest time of the day went to Ward Wallard with an 11:09 run, but the bike flipped after the timer and came down on Wallard. He was carried off the hill by stretcher but refused to go to the hospital until after this rider, the final rider of the day, Charlie Dawson, had run, and Charlie won with an 11:06. On July 22nd, the Little Dixie Club held a scrambles at Moberly, Missouri. Leonard Nixon won the Trophy Dash, but Jim Barnes won the 175 class over Nixon and Ricky Yeager. This track would be comparable to some of today's motocross tracks. It was rough enough that the water truck tipped over in one of the turns while preparing the track. Buck Gallup took the 200s again over Mel Haynes and Raymond McCracken. Freddie Worden won the 250s, followed by Dick Ebert and yours truly. My riding ability really improved when I got a new Harley Sprint. I was really getting smooth.
Year of 1962, year of the Beatles had just begun. Bart Markle had the big number one. American president was the young JFK. Al Gunner winning all the BSA. That was the year of 1962. That was the year of 1962. That was the year of 1962. That was the year of 1962.
The 1963 season started at Daytona Beach. There was no such thing as the Houston Astrodome Nationals or indoor racing. Some of the young novice and junior riders that year were Bob Winters, Torella Tachi, Bob Gill, Eddie Mulder, Buddy Elmore, and Yvonne DeHammel. Bart Markle was making his defense of the number one plate. He had won 5 nationals in '62, a TT, 2 miles, and 2 half miles. But this was to be a year of frustration for the Charger from Flint, Michigan, as numerous crashes and motor malfunctions would keep him out of the top 10 for the first time in his young 5-year expert career. He would just barely beat Donnell Shiflett at the Peoria TT National for his only 1963 national win. A very heated Kansas City rivalry had developed between the Roach Dale Phillips on a B&J Harley and the engine George Holder on a Northeast Norton. In the junior 100-mile race, the Roach and the engine battled back and forth most of the race until they both dropped out of contention. The race would be won by Buddy Elmore with a 73-mile-an-hour average. Up until 1961, the Daytona races were held on the beach, but now they were held on the new 2-mile infield course at the Speedway. packed short tracks are real crowd pleasers. Large rider turnouts made elimination races a very scary situation for many. The track was very flat and that cement wall didn't give an inch upon contact. During intermission, Carol Reesweber, who was still on crutches, was introduced to the crowd and received a standing ovation. The riders that excelled this year were Dick Hammer, Sammy Tanner, Ronnie Rawl, and Bart Markle. There wasn't separate programs for novice, junior, and experts. Everybody ran together. Neil Keane debuted a 4-speed Yamaha twin with little success. During the day, a lot of time was spent on the beach. It wasn't as crowded then as it is today, and there wasn't a lot of rules and regulations. All types of vehicles cruised, where many famous racers raced in yesteryear. There wasn't as many activities then, so loafing, swimming, and winter suntans were major activities. This was long before women's lib, so it was perfectly okay then to take a few pictures of man's favorite pastime. Gourmet food included those 10-cent White Castle hamburgers and 15-cent chili. The three of us rented a room at the same place every year for a total of $30 a week. I used a big red circus tent for a custom-fit racing jersey. There wasn't any limit on the number of entries. If 1,000 riders signed up, 1,000 riders started the race. This was a 250 sportsman race, and it had 188 entries. Daytona was an action-packed week like Dodge City was an action-packed Labor Day weekend. At Dodge Saturday night, Darrell Dovell won the short track over Donnell Shiflett and Jimmy Odell. Dovell won Sunday's short track ahead of Digger Helm, who was national number 57 and was in the cemetery and mortician business. That's why his fellow racers nicknamed him Digger. At the half mile, Elliott Schultz and Royal Enfield single was set back on the back row for creeping. He passed everyone to win over Ted Davis and Dovell. In the 250 road race, Neil Keane and Al Gunner battled until Gunner dropped back. Keane won over Dick Hammer and Tony Woodman. Donnell Shiflett averaged just under 100 mile an hour to win the 100-mile expert road race over Tony Diaz, Mert Lawwell, the Digger, and Neil Keane. But Daytona was a big one. I hauled down with Billy Leibacher and number 57 Dewey McQuarrie. Dewey ran good, but shelled an engine. This is Hank Riemann working on his son Roger's Sprint. Number 11 is Earl Widman. He and his son both raced. California TTA, Skip Van Leeuwen. Number 52, Ronnie Rawl of Ohio. Last year's junior winner, Jim Hayes. Ralph White. Roger Riemann. Jim Yeager with number 81, Donnell Shiflett, who won the Junior National at Indy in 1962. This was the first year for fairings. Most road racers then were TT bikes with big gas tanks or flat trackers with front and rear brakes. Few rib tires were around, but dirt track tires were mainly used. Top-end speeds weren't high enough to cause them to chunk. It wasn't the same without Joe Leonard, and he was racing midgets. Ed Moran rode his 500 BSA single to victory in the novice class. This would be the last year for novices on big motors and road racing. They were already on 250s for dirt tracks. Dick Hammer rode a sprint to victory in the newly formed first ever 250 combined race, and Ralph White won the 200-miler on a Harley. Winfield half mile in May drew large fan and rider turnouts, but was a low-paying race purse-wise. It was a dangerous horse track with a steel pipe fence on the outside that injured several riders. This was the year the AMA moved the novices off of 500s onto 250s. Novice number 66 is Chuck Pomergan on a Tiger Cub in the novice trophy dash. Pomergan beat out Scotty Bridges for second, but the runaway winner was Topeka's Frank Oldham on a Stan Newton-built 4-speed Yamaha twin. This was at a time when Yamaha was pretty well unknown in racing. The best racing of the day was in the junior heats and finals. George Holder, in his familiar orange colors, was buried in a herd of Harley flathead KRs, except for Fred Nix on a Curly Sutton matchless single. Holder was on a Jack Gregg Norton twin. Nix would go on to win the junior national at Freeport, Illinois, later in the year. Another front-running junior was Roy Scott of Hutchison. Now watch this slick move by the engine on the inside. The expert racing was dominated by Hutchison's Darrell Dovell, who had changed from Triumph to Harley-Davidson during the winter. Dovell ran off with everything, with a heated battle for second between Ted Davis and Mike Long. Later on in the year, On August 11th at the fairgrounds in Hutchinson was the Midwestern Championship, and Doville outrun the 1962 winner, Mike Long, to win. Third was Fred Nix ahead of Ted Davis and Roy Scott. Doville also won the expert final over Long and Davis, while Mike Sherman won the junior over Bruce Holland and Scott. Frank Oldham won the novice ahead of Bill McKinley and Ed Bontrager. Once again, it was time for the 7th State Hill Climb Championship at Holt, Missouri, with another large crowd on September 8th. This is Buster McQuarrie and Bill Heichman. At this time, it was more or less a run-what-you-brung sport. This rider rode his bike to the event, entered and competed, and rode it home. No such thing as a $3,000 trick bike with a lot of high-priced parts. Little Mickey McQuarrie and his popsicle later became Big Mickey McQuarrie and his motocrosser. This is the late Bob Garver riding Eb Helms' Sportster. This year the national titles went to Glenn Kyle on a Vincent and Phil Patrick on a Harley at Mount Garfield, Michigan on August 4th. This is Donnell Shiflett and his new 5-speed short rod Sprint. What better way to break it in than at a local hill climb? And that isn't all he broke in. This is Crazy Charlie Dawson setting another hill record by looping his Triumph over backwards at the top. A couple of half miles were held every year at Farmer City, Illinois, near the Indiana line. The purse was usually a 2-star, which is the equivalent of AMA Semi-Pro of the mid-'70s. An expert could sweep the program and not make $100. Ronnie Rawl had burst onto the scene by winning both Charity Newsies and Heidelberg Nationals. Another new national winner was Jody Nicholas, who took the Carpenterville, Illinois, and Laconia National. Gary Nixon also won his first national at the Winbar Road Race, and 3 weeks later won the Santa Fe Short Track National. These two experts battling for the lead are Babe DeMay and Roger Riemann, with Riemann winning out. Al Gunner again won the Ascot Half Mile National, while Sid Payne and Bart Markle won the Peoria TTs. Mel Lucky Oder was now flagging after his serious injuries at Cottonwood Falls, Kansas. This is a Holt, Missouri scrambles by the Happy-Go-Lucky Club. John Agee, on the inside, made a shambles of the 250 class. Meanwhile, the East-West eliminations was going on at Mohawk Speedway in Hutchinson, Kansas. In the small motors, Cole Davies won the dash, but John Senfers won the final over Billy Ridinger, Davies, and Dick Figgs. Harley Phillips won the medium motors over Bobby Jones, Eddie Bontrager, and Jim Butler. John Ellis won the big motor dash, but Bill Dusenberry won the final over Ellis, Kenny Caldwell, and Don Lohman. The consolations were won by Leroy Gehring, Andy Yoder, and Stan Engdahl. This is the 200 class, and the strong rivalry between Gary Scanlon and Mel Haynes continued. This time it was Scanlon's turn to win. 63, Gary Nixon had his hands full at Jerseyville trying to hold off the likes of Thad Coleman, Bill Taylor, and Alan Smith. Number 10K in the red jersey is better Seabird Munson, who took fourth this day. The national title was winding down, and George Roeder won his first national at Springfield after Dick Hammer, Darrell Dole, and Bart Markle all crashed while battling for the lead. The night before, Gary Nixon won the short track ahead of Mert Lawwell, Moon Buchanan, and novice Terry Stober. Roeder went on to win the Freeport, Illinois, and Sacramento Nationals. This is Belleville's Terry Stober winning the novice final on a Pirelli over Cecil Wagers of Neosha Rapids, Kansas on a Ducati. Dick Mann only won one national in '63, but the privateer had 2 seconds and 2/3 to cinch the number 1 plate on BSA Bultaco and Matchless Machines. In a sad note, Bob Walters died in a traffic accident in Illinois. The National Enduro title went to Bill Baird for the second straight year. Liberty, Illinois had a new TT track and held a Pro 4-star on August 11th. In the small motors, Eugene Newth won over Don Howell, Steve Boggs, and James McQueen. Berwin Henderson won the big motors over Jim Corp, Howell, and Frank Keller. This is a Sedalia Scrambles by the Iron Horsemen, and that's John Agee and Donnell Shiflett having another of their classic battles. On August 11th, a scramble was held at Jefferson City. The newly formed 50cc class went to Bobby Ferguson over Jim Machete on Hondas and Jack Thompson on a Yamaguchi. Leonard Nixon won the 175 over the Jaegers, and Machete came back to beat Buck Gallup in the 200. Don Crazy Carver won the 250 over Vance Kuhn, and Velocette rider Harry West beat Everett Sherman in the 500. John Whitty took the Open over Dawson and Benny Baumhauer. That's Jimmy Odell and his Ford at the Bonner Springs, Kansas Scrambles track. It was slick due to the morning rain, and just about everyone was falling off. Well, everyone except for Charlie Dawson, who ran off from Gerald Everhart in the Open. Number 3 is AMA expert Bill Snyder of Bethel, Kansas, riding Gary Scanlon's Tiger Cub.
That was the year of 1963. America was into outer space flight. Daytona was run by Harley's Ralph White. Most of America was an Elvis fan. The number 1 place went Bugsy Dick Man. That was the year of 1963. That was the year of 1963. That was the year of 1963. That was the year of 1963.
It's 1964, and all the big names in AMA racing are at Greenwood Raceway at Indiola, Iowa. Gary Nixon took the lead, but Jody Nichols took over until halfway when Dick Mann put his G50 Matchless in front to win this 175-mile national, with Roger Riemann moving up to take second. Dan Hobby won the junior over Robert Scommel and Pat Gosch, while Al Hollingsworth won the novice ahead of Dan Dubler and Torell Itachi. Al Gunner took the 250 combined lead and held it until Jody Nichols got by. Midway through the race, Dick Hammer took over, but Gary Nixon got by and went on to win. This year found Dick Mann dominating the road race scene by winning Winbar and Carpentersville too. Riemann won Daytona for the second time to keep Mann from sweeping the asphalt schedule. At the end of the season, Mann had won 4 nationals, Bart Markle had 3, while Riemann, George Roeder, and Sammy Tanner got 2 each. Ronnie Rawl, Nixon, and Dave Palmer each won 1. Dan Homme was a top-ranked junior over Fred Nix, Cal Rayburn, Eddie Mulder, and Roy Scott. Darrell Tovell was a top-ranked expert flat tracker, and some of the top novices were Gene Romero, Frank Oldham, and Terry Stober. Former Grand National Champion Joe Leonard was USAC's Rookie of the Year, and the AMA banned the Mickey Mouse ears off of Jeff Sperry's helmet for safety reasons. Patty Hearst's 11-year-old brother Austin was tearing up the trails on a 55cc Honda, while Easy Rider to Be Peter Fonda was putting miles on his BMW. KMSA's Stan Engel rode Daytona, and the American ISDT team include movie actor Steve McQueen. But the action here at Indiola was fierce, as these scenes of Daytona winner Roger Riemann leading Donnell Shiflett. Riemann set a 250cc land speed record of 156 mile an hour in a 15-foot sprint, plus would go on to take the AMA #1 plate this year. But today he got zipped at the finish line by Shiflett. And this is 250 winner Gary Nixon. About 150 miles due west of Indiola is Omaha, Nebraska, and the Rangers Rally. Scotty Bridges, Dave Fitzpatrick, and I hauled up to this 2-day affair made up of road rally, field meet, hill climb, and TT scrambles. This is Norton, one of the traditional pro half miles on the August Kansas Fair circuit. Only 4 experts showed up, including the Grand National champion, Dick Mann, who won over Ted Davis. The national circuit swung through Kansas City on July 25th at Lakeside Stadium, and it found George Roeder passing both Dick Mann and Babe DeMay to win. Bart Markle later moved into third over Sammy Tanner. Dan Hobby won the junior over John Zwerrican. This is Jimmy Odell, and his dad, Ralph Odell. Other items in motorcycling this year was Dave Monis winning the national championship 24-hour marathon in St. Louis, Iowa's Leonard Fortune making his expert enduro points, the EMA being run by Lynn Kushler and Jules Horkey, Kansas Betty Daring and Wilma Davis tying for AMA's top American female rider honors, while Ricky Vesco piloted Don Vesco's G50 matchless to a sizzling 127 miles per hour at Bonneville. This was the final year for the famous Dodge City Rally promoted by the late Floyd Clymer. Later on, the Arkansas River would flood to stop this traditional weekend. This year, Darrell Lovell won both short tracks over Donnell Shiflett and Jimmy Odell. Dick Mann won the half mile over Tony Denis and Mert Lawwell, as Eddie Bontrager won the junior and John Agee won the novice. Ron Grant won the junior road race, while Mann won the 100-miler over Lawwell. The new John Zink Ranch half-mile near Tulsa was laid out so hastily that the grader didn't line up with turn number 1 when it came out of turn number 4. Thus, the track had a right-hand turn in the front straightaway. And if you think some of today's tracks have dust, the wheelie was just becoming popular.
That was the year of 1964. Was all around. Triumph still there was victory bound. Steve McQueen movies were the thing to do. Number 1 runs or even one Daytona too. That was the year of 1964. That was the year of 1964. That was the year of 1964. That was the year of 1964.
Daytona got the 1965 season off to a good start. This is Norton Ducati distributor Jack Gregg, push starting Dewey McQuarrie, whom he sponsored. Me and old number 65 was back again. I hauled down with Dewey and Dave Fitzpatrick. The FIM World Grand Prix was held at Daytona, and the track was run backwards from what the EMA runs. 25-year-old Mike Halewood dominated the 500cc class by riding a 4-cylinder MV Augusta to lap the entire field twice and win by 7.5 miles over the Nortons of Buddy Perriott and Roger Beaumont. Defending World 250 champ Phil Reed won the 250 race over Mike Duff on air-cooled Yamaha twins. Hugh Anderson won the 125 class by 100 feet over fellow Suzuki rider Ernest Digner. But in the 50cc, it was Digner by a Suzuki bike length over Anderson. Number 148, Rick Yeager of Sedalia, Missouri, rode in his first road race and just about won it. The novice heats were won by John Holt, Charlie Dawson, Richard Brown, and Larry Darr. Dawson, who won the 250 Sportsman's race the day before, led the novice until a violent high-speed crash at the end of the front straightaway put him out. It then turned into a lead-changing duel between Yeager and Florida's Sonny Gagner, with Gagner barely edging Yeager at the finish. Roger Riemann was defending number 1. Number 73 is Harley Phillips of Hutchinson, Kansas. Number 90, Ted Davis of Ponca City, Oklahoma. Number 4, Bart Markle. Number 52 is Ronnie Rawl. Number 9, Gary Nixon, and number 29, Larry Palmgren, were part of the Triumph team. Team Hansen had G50 matchlesses for rookie sensation number 22, Dan Hobby, and former Daytona winner number 15, Ralph White. Number 18 is Mert Lawwell. Number 50 is Tony McGeea. Number 16, Dick Hammer. Number 47 is Dwayne Shadley of Oskaloosa, Iowa. Number 45, Darrell Dovell of Hutchinson, Kansas, opened some eyes with his self-designed Harley KR with dual carbs, clip-ons, and megaphone exhaust system. Road racing was held rain or shine, and Roger Riemann averaged over 90 miles an hour in the rain to win the 200 for the third time. Riemann took the lead from Hammer on lap 16. First lap leader Markle ran second until a wet Magneto put him out with 7 laps to go. Lawwell took over second ahead of George Montgomery, Gary Nixon, Dick Mann, and Buddy Elmore. The Yamaha 250 road race domination had begun, with Mann winning the combined over Nixon and Elmore. Chris Dreyer led the junior, but Blue giving the win to Wayne Cook over Ed Moran. Ronnie Rawl won the Friday night short track over Riemann, Art Martin, and Fred Nix. Riemann came back to win the Saturday night short track over Larry Palmergan, Rawl, and John Hamby. William Brandon won the Alligator Enduro on a Triumph. BMW rider John Penton had won the event 4 years in a row, but didn't ride due to a broken collarbone. Another big national was the mile at Springfield, Illinois. Chris Dreyer won the junior over Chuck Palmergan, but the national was a 50-lap trophy dash with 12 different riders exchanging the lead 92 times. Fast time qualifier was an unknown from Oklahoma named Fred Nix. Bart Markle had a poor start, but flew through the pack to take the lead with 1 lap to go, but Ralph White beat him and Gary Nixon to the flag by inches. Here's some familiar faces. Dick Woods of Topeka, Dale Atkinson of Harrisonville, Jim Holland of Kansas City. Some of the top junior riders this year was Corky Keener, Gene Romero, Chuck Palmergan, and Chris Dreyer. Richard Sexton and Denny Adler won the 4-state TT Scrambles Championship at Sioux City, Iowa, and there was now a whopping 949,000 registered motorcycles in the United States. This is Cal Rayburn at the Floyd Clymer promoted Greenwood, Iowa National near Indiola. Mert Lawwell took the lead, followed by Ralph White, Markle, Mann, and Roeder. Cal Rayburn started in the last back row position, but on the 18th lap took the lead. With 1 lap to go, White got by to win. Gary Nixon won the 250 combined, while a young kid from Indianapolis named Robert Wakefield rode his first road race and won the 250 Sportsman. Wayne Cook took the lead from Ed Moran to win the junior, with Bob Winters third. Charlie Dawson and Terrell Tachi swapped the novice lead back and forth, with Tachi winning over Ben Breeding and Rick Yeager. The 120-mile national at Wentzville, Missouri found Dick Mann taking an early lead in the rain on this 3-mile track and go on to win over Lawwell, Elmore, and Anson Holly. Chris Dreyer ran away with the junior over Ron Widman, Bob Winters, and Jim Rohn. Charlie Dawson and Terrell Tachi swapped the lead 4 times before Dawson won, with Rick Yeager third in the novice. This is hill climbing at Holt, Missouri. Another new club on the scene was Wheel Sport of Lawrence. At El Dorado, Kansas, in April, Hank Harry won the 200 and 500 classes, while Billy Dusenberry Jr. won the 100 at that Scrambles. 2 months later, the younger Dusenberry won again, but Harley Phelps pinched out his dad, Bill Sr., in the Open. Clarence Wilson nipped Stan Engel in the 500s, and Joker Stenfers won the 250. Over in Illinois, Ben Breeding had won 15 straight novice main events on a Jack Gregg Ducati. And things really hadn't changed too much for me. I was still riding like always, doing one of 2 things. Either falling off, or else I was following somebody. Joe Yeager's legs finally grew long enough where they would touch the ground, only now he was winning consistently on a Harley Sportster in a sprint at the age of 14. These scenes were taken at the Grandview, Missouri track, where names like Bill Heischman, Gary Kaplan, Bob Ely, Fred Jones, Bill Mal, Dick Hebert, and several others were also winning. A new craze hit called mini bikes, and these obnoxious-looking machines are the forerunner of today's sophisticated mini racers. 8-inch wheels, hardtail suspension, lawnmower gas tanks, and a rope starter were some of the outstanding features. Check out these handlebars. Yes, these were good years, although they may seem primitive to the modern-day racer. The KMSA was now 3 years old. Two strokes were beginning to win. The rumor about a new event called motocross was being heard, and Harley-Davidson came out with a bike for $200 that would destroy the Japanese market. This is it, the M50.
That was the year of 1965, the silent majority of LBJ. Springfield and Dodge City about to fade away. The music of the Beach Boys had just begun. Bart Barkley again was the big number one. That was the year of 1965. That was the year of 1965.
This has been a Something Different video production. Visit us online at www.differentonline.net.